Hey guys, it's Kennedy. Welcome back to Gold Souls. So, it's been a while. Some of you may know I'm a film student, and so I was in pre-production for my senior thesis. As soon as school started, I was a production designer on the film, which basically took over my entire life. The last video I made was my cassette collection video, and I have to say thank you to anyone who watched it because that video hit 1,000 views. I know 1,000 views isn't like a big deal in the scheme of YouTube, but I mean, considering how small the channel is right now and the fact that it's literally a video about me talking about cassettes for 11 minutes, I just have to say that that's a pretty big deal, and I appreciate all you guys who clicked it and watched. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys some old Hollywood books that I've come across in the past few months. If you're an old Hollywood fanatic like myself, or you're a film buff and you want to do some research or read some fun things in your spare time, this will be for you. Or if you're new to old Hollywood and you don't really know where to begin, I think these will be some good resources to start with. Before I get started, I just want to say thank you to Turner Classic Movies for sending me some really awesome gifts in the mail just in time for Christmas. TCM is a huge part of who I am as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, and they're a huge reason why I even started this channel in the first place. So I just want to say thank you to you guys. So you can get all of these items and more at the TCM shop. I'm going to link that below. Feel free to check it out. They've got books and DVDs and t-shirts and hats and bowls and things for your dog. It's literally endless. If you're a fan of classic movies and you're a TCM fan, it's definitely the place to shop. Okay, so let's get started with the first book. It's called Not This Time, Cary Grant by Shirley Eater, and Shirley Eater was a Hollywood columnist during like the 60s, 70s. She did entertainment segments on the radio and TV, even up until the 80s, and this book is basically just telling little vignettes, little stories about encounters with old Hollywood celebrities that she had throughout her career. And it really feels like you're sitting down with a friend and she's telling you all these great stories about people that she met and things that she experienced. There's a lot of famous people in here, but there's also some stars that I actually hadn't heard of before, so it's a good opportunity for, you know, even someone who considers himself like really seasoned in old Hollywood. Maybe you'd find some people in here you don't even know about, and it gives you the opportunity to do some research and discover some new stars you hadn't heard of before. So this book, I wasn't sure if I was going to include it because it doesn't exactly count as like telling real old Hollywood events. It's a fictional book, but it does have to do with old Hollywood in a fictional world. This is The Last Tycoon by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This was F. Scott Fitzgerald's last book that he wrote before he died, and he never actually finished it, so for that reason it feels very open-ended, and some things could probably use some tightening up, but I would say that it's definitely a good read for an old Hollywood fan because it puts you in this sort of fantasy world of 1930s Hollywood, but it takes place at a fictional studio. And then even though it's unfinished, I think it's an interesting read if you really are into old Hollywood, specifically the 1930s. I think he does a great job of painting that world really well and putting you inside of it. So the interesting thing about this book is that it was made into an Amazon TV series called The Last Tycoon, starring Lily Collins and Matt Bomer. The show is kind of messy. It's a little bit all over the place. I think a huge part of that is because they were working with material that was unfinished, so they took a lot of creative liberties in expanding the story, adding new characters and events and things that didn't happen in the book. So the book and the show are very different from each other, but I'd say at their core they have the same feel that F. Scott Fitzgerald created. It didn't make it past the first season, but I still really enjoyed it. I think a huge part of why I enjoyed it is because I'm a huge Lily Collins fan. I think she's amazing, and I think she's great in this show. The costume design, the makeup, the hair, the set design is all stunning. Even if it's not perfect, it's a good time, and I do wish that it had more than one season. This next book is called Heatwave, The Life and Career of Ethel Waters by Donald Bogle. Donald Bogle is the authority on Black Hollywood. He's done a lot of books and research, and he does Q&As and talks before certain screenings. For instance, when I was at the TCM Festival 3 years ago now, he spoke before the screening of Lady Sings the Blues, and so he's definitely a source to trust when it comes to reading about Black Hollywood. So this book was actually given to me by a film professor of mine. It's basically a full, exhaustive look at Ethel Waters' career from beginning to end. She started out as a jazz singer, eventually made her way into Hollywood. This book discusses all of her struggles and successes and, you know, her family life and how that shaped her career and the way that she handled her life personally and publicly. I think it definitely deserves a read if you're interested in old Hollywood. I think if you're interested in cinema, period, it's important to read, especially if you are a black filmmaker or storyteller. I think you've got to, know your history. But anybody should really pick this up and learn. It's really, really fascinating. You kind of learn about the early days of the recording industry as well as the film industry and what that experience looked like for black creatives and artists as it differed from their white counterparts. This book also has great photographs of Ethel throughout her career, so you're able to actually kind of put a face to who you're reading about and get a glimpse of what her career might have looked like through movie posters and promotional photos as well. This next book is also by Donald Bogle. It's called Hollywood Black: The Stars, the Films, the Filmmakers. It's been a really eye-opening look at Black Hollywood from the beginning of cinema. It breaks it up by era, so you've got Chapter 1, the early years of cinema, Chapter 2 is the 1930s. It goes all the way up until Black Panther. It gives you a complete look at the journey of black filmmakers, actors, creatives in Hollywood from the start up until now. And I'd say that it's the perfect resource for any research that you need to do about Hollywood history, especially as it pertains to people of color. This next book is called Hollywood and the Great Fan Magazines. It was edited by Martin Levin. This book contains high quality scans from old Hollywood gossip magazines or film magazines like Photoplay, motion picture magazines, Screen Book, Silver Screen, and they're beautiful, you guys. I've always wanted to get my hands on a classic Hollywood magazine. I haven't yet, but this is the closest thing to it. It's full of articles from different magazines with great layouts and photos, and it's amazing quality. This book was put together in the 1970s just as an appreciation of how fan magazines used to be. A great look into the kinds of communication that was coming out of Hollywood at the time, the way that stars interacted with fans and vice versa, the things people were interested in at the time regarding movies and music and fashion and all the different stars that were famous at the time. I think it's a great way if you are interested in a specific star to get a little bit more extra information about them and see how they are portrayed in the media. There's quite a few articles in here about Joan Crawford, Jean Harlow, for example, right here. Jean Harlow from Extra to Star, Betty Davis, Clark Gable. Great photographs, high quality, interesting articles, and it's just cool to see how people talked back then as well. This next book was a gift from a friend for my birthday. I really wanted to get this. It was perfect timing. It's called Letters from Hollywood: Inside the Private World of Classic American Movie Making. Rare notes, memos, and telegrams from Humphrey Bogart, Audrey Hepburn, Frank Sinatra, Jane Fonda, and more. Compiled and edited by Rocky Lang and Barbara Hall. Foreword by Peter Bogdanovich. This book is super cool because you get to look at correspondence between stars and producers and directors and gossip columnists from basically most eras of old Hollywood. The highest quality scans I think I've seen. I mean, it's like as if you're really just reading the letter off of their desk. You kind of feel like you're snooping on people's mail from like 60 years ago. Most of the big names are referenced in here, so you're bound to find a letter from your favorite. You've got letters from RKO Radio Pictures, there's a letter from Frank Sinatra, Alfred Hitchcock, Irving Thalberg. It just goes on and on. So lastly, I'm gonna end it with two books. Hollywood Glamour Portraits, 145 photos of stars from 1926 to 1949, edited by John Cobalt, and Film Star Portraits of the 50s, 163 glamour photos, edited and with an introduction by John Cobalt. Basically, it just shows you, like it says, glamour photos of stars from the early eras of cinema, silent up until talkies and right up until the end of the 40s. It's a great place to just look at great photography if you're interested in learning more about how stars were presented to the public, and if you're interested in the way that old Hollywood stars were photographed back then. Photos are high quality, they're beautiful to look at, and you get to really enjoy them at the scale that I think they were meant to be appreciated. It's one thing to be a modern fan of old cinema. You're looking at photos mostly on the internet or on Instagram, which is great, but I think if you ever have the chance to look at prints in a full size like this, you definitely should take it. So this is a great book for that. And it has a really good foreword talking about the culture of cinema at that time, the way stars were perceived, and the way Hollywood wanted them to be perceived. And it gives you names of popular photographers at the time, who was really behind the lens taking these photos, who was responsible for essentially, you know, shaping culture at the time, because people looked up to these stars, and seeing them glamorized was a part of the dream factory. It was a part of creating this illusion of who these people were in a way that was very much not who they actually were. It was creating a facade for people to worship in a sense, and so it definitely goes into that. And once you read the foreword and you start looking at the photos, you can definitely see what he means by that. So the book for the 50s does pretty much the exact same thing, except what's interesting about this is that John Cobalt takes a very different stance in this book in comparison to the other. In the book about the 20s and 30s and 40s, he praises the photography, he praises the glamour and the star quality that these people had, whereas the 50s, he's really kind of bashing them. He doesn't think that the stars really have much quality. He thinks that they're boring and vapid compared to the stars of the past, and that the quality of the photography as far as the stars go kind of loses its magic in this era. I don't totally agree with that, but he was very opinionated about it, so I think it's another interesting point of view to take in the foreword. And then once you can go past that, you can look at all these great prints. It allows you to really appreciate the hair and costume and the lighting and the way people did their makeup and this timeless glamour that the 50s brought to us. So if you're interested in classic cinema, but specifically the 50s, I would say this is a great book to pick up for fashion and makeup inspiration, just as much as it is for education on how Hollywood was at the time. And that's all for now, you guys. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books in the comments below, or if you have any old Hollywood book recommendations, leave them there. I'd love to see them. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and follow Gold Souls on Instagram. I'll see you next time.